back to the channel. I'm your host, Osa. Today we're going to do a video about Thomas Sowell's book, Intellectuals and Society. I did a part one to this interview. I'll leave a card up there so that you guys can check the part one out. And let's jump right into it for part two.
Why would the intellectuals, what you've just made is an intellectually rigorous case. Why would an intellectual, as you use the term, be loath to look at that intellectually rigorous argument, be loath to examine the data the way you did?
Well, he's happy with the data that he got. Well, why would he examine? Why would he go further? He looks at the numbers. The numbers say what he thinks it should say. Hey, that's it. Right. QED, and he moves on to the next great crusade.
Intellectuals in society, once again.
So again, I think what Tom's kind of referring to is just that, instead of actually kind of doing the work and actually putting in your due diligence and actually doing the research, you see what you want to see. You're looking for a certain outcome or certain thing, and then once you find it, you're on your way. You're doing whatever you have to do, which is true in most cases, right? What ends up happening is that now you're having inconclusive results or inconclusive outcomes where you're not necessarily computing the other side or the other components that are also variables to the outcome that that needs to happen for a set group or a set entity or what have not, right? So we have to think about that, like how many decisions that were made, whether it be national or global or statewide or even community-wide itself, like how many decisions were made based on inconclusive evidence or inconclusive data, and what are those outcomes or what are those repercussions that we're facing right now today because of it, right? Let's continue.
The phrase income distribution is tendentious. Wealth can be created only after capital and labor have reconciled their competing claims and agreed to terms on which they can operate together in the production of wealth. Close quote. Income distribution, the very phrase is tendentious. How come?
Income is not distributed. Newspapers are distributed. Social Security checks are distributed. And one time, milk was distributed. Income is not distributed. People earn it directly from those to whom they provide some good or service. And the argument made by many people, you see, is that it's a question of capital and labor have conflicting interest in dividing up the income.
Right.
No. There is no income to divide up before they first reconcile their conflicting interests and decide on what terms they're going to produce that income. There is no there's no manna from heaven for them to fight over.
You make the point, what I'm coming to is the economic crisis that we went through 18 months ago. But we'll start with the Great Depression, where all discussions of economic crises should start probably. And you make the point that there are two large features of the Great Depression. One was the stock market crash.
Before he gets into that, income isn't distributed, it's earned, right? So in terms of now whether or not people are earning the income that they're supposed to earn is another topic for discussion. But in terms of just distributing wealth and distributing money, I don't really agree with just giving out money freely like that too much, unless the circumstances apply or circumstances are applicable in certain situations where, yes, income needs to be given out or needs to be distributed. Like a pandemic, for example, right? Income should be distributed to be able to help because a lot of people are out of work and most jobs cannot function within the pandemic, i.e. restaurants, right? Restaurants being a big culprit of the pandemic because of how close proximity it is, food, people coming in and out, food being distributed, that in turn brings in whatever type of bacteria. It's susceptible to stuff like COVID. So when we talk about that in terms of income distribution, yes, that is a circumstance where, yes, money should be income, some sort of income or some sort of relief should be distributed amongst those particular groups that are affected by said events, i.e., pandemic, right? But if it's not that and the business is going on its own, no, the money should not be distributed. Should not be distributed at all, because you basically are still running the same way as if that said event did not happen, i.e., the pandemic, right? So no, I completely agree with him on that statement. Totally.
And the other was the enormous government intervention, which began under Herbert Hoover and continued and expanded under FDR, but began quickly, in other words.
Yes.
And so you say, so you have two large facts here. It's a very good question, which actually caused or prolonged the Great Depression, and it's a question that very few intellectuals actually examine.
Well, one way of examining it would be to just look at the time period. The stock market crash occurred in October 1929. Now, there's data on unemployment month by month. 2 months after the stock market crash, unemployment peaked at 9%. It then began to decline irregularly till about 6.3% by June of 1930.
Indicating the economy was attempting to recover on its own. Right.
In June 1930, the government stepped in with its first massive intervention with a Smoot-Hawley tariff, passed despite a public appeal by more than 1,000 economists from the leading universities saying, don't do it. They did it anyway. It shows how much influence economists have. Within 6 months after that, unemployment hit double digits for the first time, and it never came down for the remainder of the decade, even for 1 month. And so the stock market crash brought you up to 9%, and that was starting to fizzle out. The government steps in to help, and that hits double digits, and it eventually got up to a peak of 25%, and it didn't fizzle out until the end of the decade.
All right.
Like I said before, with that point, I disagree with him having, in terms of the distribution. Now, the example he's pointing out to was the government aided the people during the Great Depression, and in that essence, if the circumstances aligned, right, or if the circumstances made sense, yes, you should be able to distribute money. But if you're a functioning operation or a functioning business that's still functioning even before the economic crisis happened, no, you should not give them any type of money. You're still, you haven't been affected, right? So I'm assuming that his stance here is that if the government did not give out that extra help, then unemployment, not unemployment. If the government did not give out that extra help, then the economy would have gotten way better sooner than it did almost over a decade later after the Great Depression, right? Which is kind of iffy for me because we don't know, right? We don't know if that decline was just an abnormality that in terms of the unemployment rate dropping down, that it probably would have spiked up regardless if the government helped or not, right? So, we rarely would not know that. That's something I probably disagree with him on that stance. All right. So let's continue.
To a list, and then I'll ask you a question. Chairman of the Fed, Benjamin Bernanke, BA at Harvard, PhD at MIT, Professor of Economics at Princeton, Director of the National Economic Council, Lawrence Summers, undergraduate degree MIT, Doctor at Harvard, youngest tenured Professor of Economics and Harvard History, eventually President of Harvard, Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner, AB Dartmouth, MA Johns Hopkins. He's the underperformer in the group. How did this group of intellectuals acquit themselves in handling the nation's economic crisis in 2008?
Well, first of all, they didn't handle it. The politicians handled it.
Ah.
And so even if you were to say that these guys really could have done a great job had they had the unbridled power and so forth, they don't have the unbridled power. One of the problems with experts is that experts are hired by other people. And so you never know what the expert would have done. In fact, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal some time back that what the policies that are being followed in Washington are the direct opposite of the policies that Summers advocated when he published before he got to Washington.
Right.
So we should never assume that experts are just people they're supplying information to politicians who are trying to do good.
So surely, though, the intellectuals had the notion that the government should step in is a hangover from the understanding of what took place during the New Deal, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so in other words, the intellectuals, the politicians are acting within a world of options that intellectuals have created over the decades.
Yes.
Right. And are you impressed by that, the intellectual framework?
No.
No. All right. All right. Segment 3.
So again, like questioning about it all comes back to experts and who is defined to be an expert, who was placed in that position to be an expert, and why, right? So, like you said, certain people could be hired to be quote-unquote experts, but, obviously there might be an agenda, or maybe that person who hired that quote-unquote expert is looking for a certain outcome or a certain result that kind of benefits them in some way, shape, or form. So you never really know if that said expert is there to be for the betterment of the people, for the betterment of the whole or the masses, or it's just achieve an ulterior motive. So again, you have to question. We won't really know unless we see the results at the end of the day. So, but at the same time, we could also question, like, some of the stuff that, hey, some of the stuff that these experts are saying, like, hey, that doesn't really make any sense, or hey, like, yes, you as an intellectual can question things, but here in this video, and let me try to clear up a little bit here, right? So you as an intellectual, somebody who thinks, uses their brain for critical thinking, and you can question stuff, right? But somebody who is an expert needs to have a proven background and a trusted background in whatever subject area that they are highly knowledgeable in, or are highly where they highly excel in. Like, that needs to be the standard, and that's the difference between an expert and an intellectual. An intellectual can question stuff all the time, and they can be wrong. Like, there's chances that they could be wrong, but at the same time, if you want to consider yourself as an expert, you need to have a proven background or a proven track record where what you've done, what you've accomplished, it's agreed among you. That's agreed amongst your peers. And once you have that, then yeah, I don't mind someone being an expert there. So that's the difference between an expert and an intellectual. All right, so let's clear that up. And if anyone has any type of confusion about that, there you have it. Right. Let's continue with the video.
Segment 3: Intellectuals and vision. Intellectuals in society. The vision around which most contemporary intellectuals tend to coalesce has features that distinguish it from other visions prevalent in other segments of contemporary society or among elites or masses in earlier times. Close quote. What is the vision to which contemporary intellectuals subscribe?
That intellectuals should influence, if not control, the kinds of decisions that are made in society, and more especially that they should promote the transfer of decisions from the masses to those who have, quote, more intellect. And given how I conceive of knowledge being its distribution, that would mean transferring decisions from where there's 99% of the knowledge to where there's 1% of the knowledge. And against that background, it's not at all surprising that things like central planning simply don't produce as good results as allowing all the millions of people to react in the marketplace.
All right. Let me ask you a question that came in from Twitter.
That's pretty straightforward, right? It's like wealth distribution and how the 1% has 98% of the money, while the other 2% goes to the 99% of people, right? Same thing here. And what he's kind of saying here is that, that thought process mirrors that, right? Giving the power from the people, taking the power away from the masses because, quote unquote, there are intellects or intellectuals, quote unquote, right? So, or experts, right? Intellectuals, experts, quote unquote, that are supposedly well equipped to come into make a better, who are supposedly well equipped to make a better decision than the people who actually live in that said situation. So, same stuff, right? Let's continue.
Travis 814. All these questions are limited to 140 characters, so get ready. It's coming at you, but it'll go fast. Why does the liberal progressive mindset have such a stranglehold within the intellectual academic world? Why should the vision that you just described be so prevalent among intellectuals?
Well, among the many reasons, most academic intellectuals have no experience, no serious experience outside the academy. I remember I was once an economist for AT&T when it was the world's largest corporation, and when I returned to the academic world, they welcomed me as the prodigal son. You see, had returned from the evils of corporate America to the true nirvana of academia. And not only do they have no experience, they have every incentive to believe that they are brighter than other people and no more than other people, because they've been told that all their lives. I mean, you become a top intellectual because you've passed through all these successive filters. You've gotten into the best colleges. You've gotten into the best graduate schools.
Or even from second grade on, the teachers are responding to you as a kid who passes tests especially well.
Yes.
Right.
And so you have all of that in your background.
You write in Intellectuals in Society.
I think I mentioned this back in the first video, so if you haven't seen that video, don't check that out. But these intellectuals, or quote unquote, who then turn into experts, right? Or the intellectuals that are propped up to be experts. These guys are usually sheltered, right? Throughout their life, they're told that yes, you are smart based on the criteria of an academia rule book, that they've been able to pass certain levels. As they progressed, they did well. But at the end of the day, like, they're only knowledgeable in whatever they were taught in school. They don't know anything outside from that. They don't know what life is like in the projects. They don't know what life is like in other countries. They don't know what life is like in rural areas and farming areas. They don't know what life is like in suburban area. Maybe they do. Some of them do come from a suburban area. But right, like, besides whatever their experiences are, you cannot just give total power to a select few based on the fact that they pass certain levels in a establishment where they created the rules that said if you pass highly in said categories or said things, you're considered a highly intelligent person, right? So again, and that's only a few people get to that level in terms of academia. Very, very few people do. And then those people that are, constantly being told they're smart, or constantly being acted around that they're said smart, they believe that, and thus have that sort of what's the word I'm looking for again? Entitlement. Have that type of entitlement where, yes, whatever I say is the right thing, which again, it's not. So I think what I'm trying to say is that it kind of doesn't leave room for discovery, or maybe leave room for you that there's a chance you could be wrong, since you've been told all your life that, hey, you're right, you're doing well, you're like, you're highly over the masses, like your intellect is so high up there that yes, you do lose that ability to be told you're wrong, that your ego won't let you have it. So that's it. Let's do one more. Let's do a little bit more.
Intellectuals in society, if you happen to believe in free markets, judicial restraint, traditional values, and other features of what you call the tragic vision, there's no personal exaltation arising from those beliefs. But to be for social justice and saving the environment puts you on a higher moral plane.
Yes.
So the question here is, can it really be that simple that intellectuals across the American landscape tend to embrace the vision that you've described sheerly out of self-flattery and self-pleading?
Yes.
It is.
Don't forget, human beings have an enormous power of rationalization. Think of all the absurd things that have been believed throughout all of history. And I guess the one common denominator is that those absurd things typically were very flattering to those who believed them. They had the one true faith. They were the vanguard of the proletariat. You just run through the whole list of the things.
By the way, I've been reading some Marx, I can't understand how anyone ever took that seriously. I mean, ever took it seriously.
Well, what are you reading?
Sentence by sentence, it's, oh, well, I began with the Communist Manifesto that he and Engels wrote.
It's a magnificent, if you want a model for propaganda, it is the masterpiece.
But there's actually absolutely no contact with actual economic reality.
No, there's no need for that, as many people are showing. You can become president of the United States with no contact with economic reality.
All right, two quotations. Intellectuals in society, quote, "The intelligentsia often divide people into those who are for change and those who are for the status quo."
Yes.
Candidate Barack Obama, "We are the change we have been waiting for."
Yes.
Tom?
People who say things like this act as if they're saying something new. This is what was being said back in the 1790s, and ever since then, you know, there's nothing older than the idea that this is new. And
Thomas Paine, "We have it in our power to make the world over again."
There you are.
Right.
But in point of fact, again, this is one of those totally unquestioned and unsubstantiated statements. John Dewey was saying, you know, that made the same thing some 60 years ago, that those of us who are for change have to fight against those who are for the status quo. Now, the people he was talking about, people like Adam Smith was not for the status quo.
Of course not.
As I mentioned in the book, why would Adam Smith spend a whole decade writing a 900-page book to say how contented he was with the way things were? I mean, when you spend a decade writing a 900-page book, something is bugging you. You know, I mean. Right. And anyone who ever bothered to read Adam Smith would see that he is pretty ticked off about a lot of things.
So, yeah, we'll stop right here. Again, I think the overall arching theme here is that instead of just giving all the power to a select few, give the power to those who are actually living in that set situation. I think that's really the key factor here, because those said few don't know what it's like to live in a set situation. So they themselves aren't actually equipped to give a reasonable or a to give a concise and thorough conclusion, or rather a result to whatever the circumstance is going on to help change it. They can't, because they haven't experienced it. And I think that's really the whole key point that's I think Thomas was trying to get to. All right, so I'm gonna stop it here. Definitely gonna be like a part 3. I'm really enjoying this discussion here a lot, and catch you guys in the next video. All right, don't forget to like, comment, share the video, subscribe if you're new to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscribe button so that you also get a notification whenever I put up a new video, and comment about it. Like, what do you think about the video so far in terms of like intellect, in terms of like these high achieving academic people coming out of college and then having all this type of not responsibility, but power almost thrusted to them because they have the said degrees and they come from the said top schools, and they've scored high marks. Like, how do you feel about them being the ones dictating how things operate, or how problems are solved in situations that they haven't even experienced themselves in? All right, or are you okay with that? You know, leave a comment down in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. All right, take care.
4 a.m. We're out of bed with the color-coded sky. Seem like always with this battle royal minds. She rises up with that warm, bright smile of hers. Felt like one of those days, like I'm the motherfucking treasurer, like The Rock. I rose up.